Hello, this is Francine Houston. I'm your host for the RCU. So lately I did like poetry. I started doing poetry out of my books and stuff. And before that I did a review for What If I Win. It was a book that was given to me. It's very got a lot of information and kind of keeps you encouraging yourself to think positive. I went to book. No, I went to vendor for my books, and this lady named K.D. Allen. She has this Love Yourself journal, so I ended up buying it to see how it would be. And it has like a lot of different prompts inside of it and stuff. So I thought it was good. But I'm also part of a prayer, and they told us to get this book called Release and Prophetic Destiny over a Nation. So this book is basically talking about praying for different states because I don't want to bring this up. I know that everybody's talking about it, but the elections it is within 2 weeks or so because today's 26th. Election is November the 5th. So I ended up getting this book. I really need to finish, like, start reading it. But the reason why we got the book is because it has the different states in here and what to pray for, and it's been a lot of stuff happening in different states that I don't agree with. Like they have Jim Crow in Mississippi and stuff like that, and I'm like really against all of that stuff. But I ended up buying this book because she wanted us. Well, a lady that I one of the ladies that I pray with, that I go to church with, she wanted us to pray for different states. And so throughout this book, it has the different states in here and what they may be going through and like what exactly to pray for. And even, of course, it has Michigan in here. Um, I wanted to look up Mississippi because that one has been, but I'm trying to see how they do this in here. Um, I can read it, bits and pieces of it. I don't want to take away from it because I encourage people just to get it. That's if you are interested in praying over the states because I don't know what's going to happen after election. I have no clue. I don't know who gonna win. I'm not being a prophet on here or nothing like that. I'm just saying, hey, if you want to know your history about the states, this could be a good book to learn about stuff. This is a good book called Love Yourself as well and What If I Win. So I'm not out here to tell you what to do. I'm just encourage you on what books you could read. So I looked up the word Michigan. Um, Let me read a little bit of this one. It says through the 50 states tour, Michigan Voice as well as its keys was returned so it could become the door in 2004. Already it has been a major turn in the state, and there are some signs of beginning revival. So this is more like telling you, the spiritual background of it. Pontiac, Michigan, is experiencing a beginning of a breakthrough, and both for the churches, pastors, and government coming together. And there's a split over in Detroit. There's a breakthrough that has begun in Detroit that will follow through, which includes the mayor of the city. We have experienced a breakthrough of revelation that released strategy through the 50 state tour and now are following the strategy through the transitional beginning to a quarter, which has been happening is miraculous. So, which what following is the voice issue emerged the 50 state tour meeting. Dutch sheets were led of the Lord to teach the people losing their voice. What Dutch did not know was the former mayor of Detroit has actually seen Solomon Hussein the keys to the city. Thus, the churches in the region lost their voice as the door to another religious structure was open. So this is more on the spiritual side of everything, and it's telling you what to pray for concerning this. Because I think 2004, that's after 9/11. That's after what all of that stuff happened. So um, as you read these different um, states, you find out what you should actually pray for. For right now, they seem to I see what I will have to pray for concerning these things. But I wanted to get over to Mississippi. I'm kind of biased over this because I have a lot of family members that live in Mississippi. If that's the case, I need to look up Texas. Like my family is like everywhere, but majority of them are in Michigan. So I wanted to know a little bit about Mississippi because I don't understand how all this stuff is just happening right now, and you know we have a Democratic you know president, but they still have Jim Crow down here. But I have to realize this is the South. That's the South. So um as far as Mississippi, it's I wish it was a little bit more political because I'm like I want to figure out why they added Jim Crow in here. But it says for 25 years following the Civil War, Mississippi for former slaves and former owners gapped with the political, social, and economic consequences of emancipation in the in emancipation. The white majority could not or would not accept biracial society based on the equality of opportunity. In 1890, the ruling elite adopted a constitution that established a caste system of racial segregation and economic order that kept blacks in its place and in position of dependency. Mississippians hoped to find economic salvation in coming of industry and railroads, but the hope was only partially realized. Emancipation had made the former slaves free to go where they wished, but remained and eventually were absorbed in a tenant farming system. So this was like the history of it. No, it's talking about Jim Crow. So I'm about to add that in here. The continued economic independence of the two races kept intact many of its customs and social systems that have been developed before the war. The separated but equal Jim Crow laws was followed upon the Constitution of 1890, and they reinstated it. So you see how far back this is going. Eventually, this franchising most of the black population. After return of the 20th century, the Supreme Court began to overturn Jim Crow laws on constitutional grounds. In 1964, the Congress passed the Civil Rights Act outlawing discrimination and attacking these laws and practices. But for some odd reason, people are telling me that this thing is back in motion. So I was reading about it because I wanted to know how far back it went. So that's kind of how far back it went. So I will have to like go and find out more about it to see why it's happening. But as far as everything else, I mean, I got this book. We were trying to just look over it and look at the different states because everything was happening so fast with the election. I have to admit, I work at a government facility. So I make the clothes for the military, but at the same time, I get text messages like all the time about, okay, we having a rally for Kamala Harris. We having such and such and such. Can you come to it? Like I think 2 Sundays ago, No, I wasn't supposed to win. They told me that it was some type of rally for Bernie Sanders, and I couldn't even. By that time, usually on Sundays, I'm not trying to do all of that. If it was a Saturday or maybe a Friday, maybe. But we'll talk about this next book. And I listened to an audiobook this week, so I can discuss that one as well. This is called Love Yourself Journal. I ended up getting this book because I felt propelled. I felt like everybody been talking about self-care. So I wanted to see about self-love. But it says self-love is the foundational element of emotional well-being and mental health. It's often misunderstood and overlooked. At its core, self-love involves that deep appreciation and acceptance of oneself and masking both strengths and imperfections. So I would have thought it had more words in here, but it's got stuff that you have to do. Like it says, I am beautiful. Then you have like an appointment log, which I probably need to use. And then It has a daily journal. It have a self-assessment about your productivity. Even have your water intake inside here. Like I have a family member that she always be like, she got like I don't know if it's an app on her phone or something on her watch. She got something to tell her she needs to drink some water. And I'll be looking at her like, you really go by this stuff. And she was like, yeah, saying I need to drink some water. She just stopped what she doing and she drinks some water. But I didn't consider that like self-care, or self-love. It's self-love, but I mean self-care. I would say self-care, but it's actually they consider it self-love. So it's basically the same repeat. And every throughout this thing, they just tell you different things. I am blessed. I'm deserving of love. Self love is the greatest love of all, which I really think Jesus is the greatest love of all. But okay. Um. So with this one, yeah. So I spent 2 days because I told myself I wasn't gonna talk about it, but I felt drawn to this book. I ended up getting on Audible. It's this app called Audible right here. I don't think you can see it. You probably can't see it. But I ended up I didn't even buy the book. I ended up being like drawn to this book called The Path of Self-Love. And I was just like, what is this book? I didn't know what the book was about. I just kept on looking at it and I kept on telling myself, well, maybe I don't need to read it. And then I was like, I don't have time to read it. But they had like this offer where you could get the book for like 99 cents on Audible. And then somehow, because I buy so many books off of like KDP and Kindle, I ended up getting two free books on Audible. I didn't have to pay for it. I clicked to try to pay for it. I was just like, it's on us. You have some type of free trial where you can get 2 free books. So I ended up getting this book, and I was listening to it while I was at work. It's called. Let me see if I got it on here. I don't even know if you can see it on my phone, but I ended up getting this book. Ended up listening to it. It's 9 chapters, but it takes you like I think it's like 6 hours. It's 6 hours long. But this book had me, I wouldn't even say it had me in my feelings literally because it's like she talked about so many things that can affect you concerning self-love. And the author name is Ruby. I forgot her last name. Let me try to find it on my phone. It's because this she the only one I have on here. It's 6 hours long. It's 6 hours long. So it's Ruby and her last name is Dhal. And it was like at first she started talking about traumas and things that can affect you concerning your self-love journey. And when she started talking about grief, that's when I felt like I was about to start crying at my job because I was like, oh my God. Because I didn't see how grief can affect you with self-love. And I was just like, okay, because she started talking about stuff you wouldn't connect self-love with. She started talking about like traumas, like where she didn't have a mother at 4 years old, or like when she was younger, how they used to like she developed body image problems and like eating disorders based off of her appearance and stuff like that, and how that affected how she saw herself. And but it's when she started talking about grief, that's when it started getting to me because I lost my aunt this year. And I was just like, well, oh my goodness. I didn't see how that can affect you because like after you go to a funeral or you do something, you feel like you don't I mean, I wouldn't say you would neglect yourself, but sometimes you don't feel like eating. Like that whole day I wouldn't eat. The day I went to her funeral, I just didn't eat. I had no desire for food. We didn't even have a repast because people were just like, I'm just gonna go home. I don't feel like eating. Like I had to force myself to eat by I say later on that day or whatever. So she started talking about that. She started talking about the dynamics of friendships, like the different friendships she had, all that type of stuff. And I didn't put all this together because I'm like, when you think about self-love, you just think about you. You don't think about the people around you. So the way she explained the book, she had you to really think about how self-love, how you love yourself can affect the people around you in a positive way or a negative way, or the people around you that's showing you that they care about you, but if they're toxic, it's going to affect you in a negative way. Like she was talking about a lot about self-worth and how some people stripped her away of self-worth while other people actually gave her a more of a sense of self-worth. It was a real deep book because I had to stop listening to it at work because everybody thought something was wrong with me at work. They was like, Francine, are you okay? And I was like, am I showing my expressions of how I feel this bad? Because when she started talking about grief, I was like, oh my God, this is hard. And then she started talking about all the different dynamics she had concerning her friendships. And it surprisingly, it was the friendship she had with women. And I was like, oh my goodness. And it would just seem like she was the type of woman who had bad relationships with women, but she had a good relationship with her spouse. It was crazy. And I was like, you don't really meet that many people like that where they just have bad relationship with the same sex, but they good with the opposite sex. Sometimes that do happen. So when she said that, I was just like, oh, she just tell her all. I was like, she telling all her business in this book because I have the tendency to do that. I'm really transparent in my books, but it's only certain things I will tell you about myself, and it's only certain things I would express, but I just felt like this lady was so transparent. I was like, I don't know if I could be this transparent if I'm talking about love of any kind. And she was talking about self love. She was talking about her body image problems. She was talking about the dynamic she had with her parents and her siblings. And I was like, I think I was that transparent when I did Lupus Journey. And I was like, the more I start writing books, the more I'm like, you know what? They don't need to know this. I don't need to explain all of this. I don't need to tell nobody this part of my life. But I know she wrote multiple books before. It's only one of the books that I know of. But for her to write all of that, I was just like, her being that honest and that transparent helped me out. But I was just like, after reading all that, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to write in that aspect of that subject at all because she was really out there. She was really out there. But it really helped me to think about what the Bible, because like I always in my books, I think it was two books that I wrote. The Self Care Guide, and I think I don't know if I put it in the S on my chest, but it was basically that scripture about love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I do have one small, and I think I read it one of these times. I have one small chapter about self love, but it was just talking about myself. If I could elaborate on it, I could definitely be more like this lady Ruby here and telling you what led me to have this like I don't know this grand moment where I just said, okay, dang, I need to love myself because I'm up in a hospital somewhere sick and I'm out here working and doing everything for everybody else, but I'm in a hospital sick. But that was me at 34 years old. I'm trying my hardest not to be back in a hospital. Um, not to be back for a whole week, not to go through all of that stuff ever again in life, just to stay in good health. That's the plan for the rest of life. Just stay in good health. Don't be in the hospital for several days, and I can't do it. Um, it had me really thinking because before that, me and my sister on October the 12th, we went to a lupus conference, and I think I took some notes. I started screen shooting a lot of this stuff, but it was just like, and I should just say some of the notes on there as well because the self love kind of led it kind of it led you to think about self love. So maybe my me being propelled to think about this was the fact that I went to the lupus conference. But I took some notes for this because here you go. It was a lady named Dr. Michelle Kallenberg. She started talking about the different types of lupus and diagnosis challenge. And I actually had to do a survey concerning that. I don't know why I didn't remember that lady's name. I just started talking about the different presentations they had. And she explained what lupus was. And then she said what really got me was what can trigger lupus. And I had to sit there and write it down. And I hope I got it. It said important triggers that cause lupus to progressive flare. Lack of sleep, less than 7 hours of sleep at a night. And I know I'm guilty of that. Stress, diet, smoking, um, ultraviolet light, which you need to wear sunscreen. And she said for smoking was to eat cannabis and not smoke. So I was just surprised she said to eat cannabis. And then she said chemical exposure, mercury, infectious was like COVID, the flu, whatever. That can be important flares, important triggers that can cause lupus to progressive flare. But at the end of her presentation, she started saying that they were going to have a cure for lupus in 10 years. And the thing was, it's like I got hopeful. I was like, okay, okay. Even though I know, regardless if they have a cure for disease or not, was to believe on the power of the Holy Spirit and the Lord to heal me or whatever, or heal whoever. It had gave me some hope because I was like, in 10 years they'll find a cure. So everybody started poking and prodding because we like they not gonna just give you a cure like in no 10 years without you thinking that they will make you pay for it. And then when she started talking about it, you would have to pay for it, and they only would give it out to the people who 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 needed it the most. Like they had tried everything, they tried all type of medications, and nothing. They didn't. Nothing happened. So they was gonna give it to those people, and they was just like, well, when they gonna actually give it to the people who 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 just regular people out here who own medications? Because I don't think people should be on steroids forever who actually need the help so they can live a normal life. They said eventually it's gonna be for everybody. And I'm like, if I'm waiting 10 years and then it's gonna be eventually for everybody, I'm wondering is by the end of my life I finally get the cure for it. So I'm not gonna just rely on the medical people to give me a cure. I'm still gonna believe that God can heal me. But it was um it was a really good presentation that she did. It was very informational because a lot of this stuff I never put two and two together. I know that you're supposed to get your sleep, but I never knew not getting sleep can cause you to have a trigger. Cause I used to always wonder when I get sick again or I have like a small flare up. I'm like, where did this stuff come from? But the stuff she's listed down, it made sense. Cause every now and then, it's either with me, either lack of sleep or diet. Cause sometimes I get off and I just be wanting to eat certain things. So right now I've been watching myself and I'm making sure that I don't do that. And then it was another presentation that had it was talking about lupus in the skin. And I was trying to find out which one of that I may deal with because right now it's just a lot of acne, which I'm going to try to take care of that. But that's from taking the steroids. But she talked about the different types of lupus that can affect your skin and is not reversible and it won't go away. And I asked about me because I just thought it came as a skin lupus at first. It was actually SLE because I used to have like a butterfly rash across my face. And I don't have that anymore. And I used to not have that much hair at all. Like my hair, it grew back, but I had to get it cut because it used to be a lot longer than this. But she talked about the different types of skin lupus, and a lot of those skin lupus is like I don't know if anybody remember the singer Seal. He had a type of skin lupus that's not reversible. Like those scars is not going to go away. Like some of this stuff, at least the scar, and you can't do anything about it, or they have a type where it's just all over your body, and I don't even know if you can get rid of that. So um that was like informational, and then they recommended a dermatologist and stuff. So I mean, I really listened to it. I tried to take much in as possible. Then they had a another speaker named Keith. I forgot his last name. He started talking about the different medications that you could take for it. No, it's Keith Binion. And everybody was asking them how long should a person be on certain type of medicines and stuff like that. But it was very informational. What they was missing which I thought was odd that the guy who was over the nutrition was not there. And that was Dr. Aaron Stubbs. I don't know what happened. I don't even know if they're going to even send us the presentation because I needed to know. Last year, he did the Mediterranean diet. And I used to be taking these classes called mindful eating. And he would talk about, the Mediterranean diet. So that conference was very educational, and then they had people who actually deal with lupus. They had a panel with them, and they had their caregivers. And some of the caregivers they had was like people's spouses, their husbands, or their mothers, or just you notice it was. I noticed it was people that was like within their family or whatever that they cared for them, and it was just like it was different. I mean, I needed to hear about how one mother, she's a lot older, she did what she could to take care of her daughter. But I also was listening about this guy. He said he met his girlfriend at 15 and he just knew that was his wife and he knew he was going to take care of her whether she was sick or not. And he just said he remembered carrying her up the stairs or whatever he had to do to take care of her, and she was just there. She had like a walker because, like, I heard from her last year, but I think her husband was in the audience. But this year, he came up and introduced himself as the caregiver, and I just thought it was interesting because most time you don't see, well, I don't see people with lupus be with somebody who actually. I wouldn't say be with somebody. I don't never see their spouses. I always just see them there. They may be married or whatever. I never see them there with their significant other. So for me to see that, I was just like, well, wow, and he was just saying that, he was gonna be there for her and he was gonna take care of her. And I think they had kids or whatever. He was just gonna be there for her. And I was just surprised because I really, it's like when we do these panels and stuff like that, you normally don't see stuff like that. So we heard from different people. Everybody had like a different scenario and a different story. Some people had lupus. They recently just got diagnosed like during the pandemic. And then some people like some people like the mother and the daughter and the husband and the wife. It seemed like they had it for a little longer periods of time, but it seemed like they got a grasp on how, the dynamic, how they could help each other. So it had me really thinking, that how different things affect people around you. Thus it gravitated me to self-love or whatever. That what I started listening to because yeah, because I watched that October the 12th, but I listened to self-love for the past 2 days, this book called Self-Love. And it had me thinking because it's like when a person going through something, they just think of, sometimes 9 times out of 10 they thinking about themselves. But it's like once I went to the panel and once I read that book, I had to realize it's not just you, it's the people. It had me think about how it affect the people around me and how you may be going through something. And with that case, it was the lupus conference. The people there was dealing with lupus. The other people around them started saying how it affected them. So it had me thinking, like, okay, if I can do the best that I can to take care of myself and show myself self-love, I think it will help the people that is around me too, because it affects them as well. So um, I encourage you to get these books if you would like. No pressure. Even my books, no pressure. I appreciate the people who have been buying my books. After the broadcast, I do see people buy the books. I do get like the Kindle notices, so I appreciate that. And I'm gonna show the books again. This is the releasing the prophetic destiny of a nation. This is Love Yourself Journal. This is What If I Win. I don't even know if I can show mine because last week I wrote, a weeks ago I did this book, and then I read out of this book just the self love chapter, and then I read out of also read out of the random thoughts. But until next week,